Hello all, welcome to a video essay on the fascinating economy of Bhutan. Today I'll be answering the research question: to what extent can demand/supply side policies help Bhutan meet its macro objectives? So a little background information: the national dish is Dashi. The national animal is the dakin. In 2003, the yak population was 52,911. As you can see here, Bhutan is located between two very large economies, China and India. It is located in the Himalayas and is very mountainous. It is landlocked as well. So I will be discussing the four objectives of macroeconomics. They are economic growth, inflation, unemployment, and equity. Firstly, I'll be defining inflation. So inflation is the increase in price level of an economy over a period of time. It is mostly measured in CPI. CPI measures the changes in price of basket goods and services consumed by the average household. Basket goods and services that are commonly used by the average household and therefore give a good indication of price level change. High inflation means loss of purchasing power for consumers as the price of goods are higher. Unemployment. So unemployment is a term used to describe the situation when people who are willing, able, and available to work are unable to find work. There are four types. So frictional. This is the time period in between people having jobs, so when they're switching jobs. Structural unemployment is when people are out of a job because their skills are no longer required. For example, factory workers losing their jobs to machines. Seasonal unemployment is when someone doesn't have a job because their work is seasonal. A good example, a very obvious example, is a ski instructor. The ski instructor does not work in the summer and cannot work in the summer because there is no snow and therefore cannot ski and instruct skiing. When winter comes, they are able to work. And cyclical unemployment is when, because of weak demand, firms have to fire their workers because they cannot pay their workers. During the COVID recession, many people underwent cyclical unemployment as their firms had to fire them because they simply weren't making enough money to pay for them. Next is economic growth. Economic growth is the increase in the amount of goods and services produced in the economy. It is measured in GDP, annual GDP growth, and GDP per capita. Equity is when an economy has low levels of equity. It is because there's an unequal distribution of factors of production. In any economy and country, not everyone will have the same levels of income, and not everyone will have the same level of wealth. Equity is measured using the Gini index and is visualized using the Lorenz curve. So I will be going over indicators of economic growth as well as inflation rates in this section. First of all, we have nominal GDP and GDP growth rate. As you can see here, as of 2020, GDP of Bhutan is 2 billion. Since the 2000s, there's been quite high growth because this is when Bhutan started investments in hydropower plants and also increased the amount of tourists and allowed tourists to enter the country. Beforehand, tourists weren't really allowed to enter the country. They're pretty strict on that part. But as you can see here, there's been a decrease in GDP and a decrease in GDP growth during the COVID lockdowns as there were supply shortages and tourists were not allowed to enter. As you can see here, there was a 10% decrease in GDP growth. Next, we have GDP per capita. The GDP per capita of Bhutan has been increasing quite steadily since 1990s, but because of the COVID recessions, saw a decrease in 2020. As you can see here, GDP per capita purchasing power is a lot higher than the GDP per capita. This is as Bhutan has low cost of living, so a $2,800 income is relative to a $10,000 US dollar income. Next, we have a GDP breakdown. So household consumption make up 58% and government spending make up 16%. Investments in fixed capital make up 47%. Exports of goods is 26% and imports is minus 48%. This means Bhutan imports more than they export. GDP consumption by sector of origin: agriculture makes up 16%, industry, which is mainly hydropower and mining, make up 14.8%, and services make up 42%. Services, a large part of the services are tourism. Labor force, so 58% Bhutanese labor force is agricultural, 20% is industrial, and 22% is service. So agriculture plays a large role in the livelihoods of the Bhutanese people. So the final expenditure of Bhutan is around 83%. As you can see, it's quite volatile, and interestingly enough, did not decrease in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. Here we have inflation rates. As you can see here, there's a spike during the financial recessions. Increase in 2020, however, has kind of decreased post-pandemic. So interest rates of Bhutan sort of stayed steady at 6% until 2019, 2018, where the central bank decided to increase interest rates. Interestingly enough, the Bhutanese Monetary Fund did not decrease the interest rates that much during the COVID recession, unlike other countries, in order to increase spending. Moving on, government debt to GDP, as you can see here, it has been increasing since 2012 from 80% to 134%. This is as there's been increased investments in hydropower, mining, and tourism sectors. Foreign direct investment, as you can see here, during 2006, there's quite a lot of foreign investment relative to other periods of time. However, Bhutan doesn't really require foreign investment to function, to be an economy. They are pretty self-sustaining, is what this graph is trying to say. Unemployment/equity, so the unemployment rate of Bhutan relative to the world has been quite low at around 3%. There's an increase in 2008 during the financial recession. However, during COVID, there was an increase to 5% due to cyclical unemployment. This is one of the economic issues that Bhutan currently faces. Different unemployment rates of different groups in Bhutan. Youth unemployment is pretty high with 13.9%, and female unemployment is very high at 39%. This is a very serious issue and probably needs to be solved. It's not a good look that 39% of the female workforce is unemployed. The Gini index of Bhutan is around 39. This isn't the best in the world, but then again, isn't the worst in the world. It's around the average worldwide, but definitely needs improvement. Here we have poverty rates. The international poverty rate of $1 a day. Only 1.5% of Bhutanese people live under that, and the relative poverty rate adjusted for Bhutan and their cost of living is $3.2 a day, and 82% of people live below the relative poverty line. So here is a graph showing carbon emissions, and it shows that Bhutan is actually the only carbon negative country in the world, which is a very positive thing, especially in the age of climate change. For a country to be carbon negative is quite impressive. I feel like this is a very good indicator of the economy, because not all economies have to be industrialized. Economy should focus on, helping the environment more. Next is the Happy Planet Index rank of 17. The Happy Planet Index takes into account standards of living as well as environmental factors, and Bhutan likes to pride themselves on being the happiest country in the world. According to the ranks, they're only 17th, but they say they're the happiest. Bhutan's current economic policies, so shifting AD, fiscal demand side policy, Bhutan issuing its first bonds in order to increase the spending. Here in this article, they said they focused on the tourism industry, as during COVID, the tourist industry could not make any money as there were no tourists. Monetary demand side policy, The finance minister of Bhutan requested the Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan to decrease interest rates, as this would increase the amount of people borrowing money and would therefore increase the aggregate demand of the country, as people would be more willing to spend money, therefore increasing AD. So here is a result of the demand side policies that were implemented, ceteris paribus. So you can see 81 pushes to 82 as there's increased money in the economy and people will be more willing to spend, which increases demand. Firms will be able to make more money and the economy will grow overall. Next we have shifting AS. The market-based supply-side policy that they use the most is investments in hydropower and hydroelectric dams. According to the World Bank, hydropower accounts for 27% of Bhutan's revenue and 14% of its GDP. Hydropower is a big factor in the Bhutanese economy and has helped it grow quite a lot, as I mentioned in the GDP graphs. Bhutan opening its doors to tourism recently in the past month or so. This will increase supply as tourists will be coming in and the tourism industry will finally be able to make money. Here is a graph as a result of hydropower dams and lessened COVID restrictions. Because of these policies, AS1 has moved to AS2. There's more supply in the economy. So the economic objective I will be focusing on and proposing two solutions to is economic growth post-pandemic. As I previously mentioned, there was a dip in economic growth and number one objective would be getting it back to what it was before. So first would be reducing interest rates. As you can see, Bhutan actually has very high interest rates in comparison. Cambodia only has an interest rate of 0.73%. And by reducing interest rates, the population will be able to borrow more, therefore increasing demand in the economy. So my proposal is just to decrease it by 6% back to 2008 rates. Results of reduced interest rates, AD1 will shift to 82 as people will borrow more money and people will spend more, therefore aggregate demand will increase. So pros and cons. Pros, there will be an increase in economic growth as there are lower costs of borrowing and incentives for people to borrow, which increases AD, and this will decrease unemployment as there's increased spending. Firms will be able to pay their workers and hire more. Cons of reducing interest rates, it can cause inflation as there's an increased amount of money in circulation. Crowding out is another possible negative of interest rates being reduced. It may benefit the upper class more than the lower class, as the upper class has better access to borrowing money and lower classes may not be in the position to pay back these interest rates and will not borrow. Animal spirit, people may not want to borrow money because they're scared that they cannot pay them back during a recession. Next, we have investments in infrastructure. Bhutan is one of the most mountainous countries in the planet, and bridges and tunnels are key to transporting goods, mainly in the agricultural sector, but all sectors really. For my proposal, I propose to increase investments in roads, bridges, and tunnels, and to further increase investment in hydropower and mines to grow the economy, to increase employment. Hydropower is a large sector of the Bhutanese economy. So a result of increased infrastructure, AES will shift to AS2 as there is more supply in the economy because people are able to transport goods, and with hydropower and mines increasing, there's more supply. There's more opportunities to sell electricity and minerals. So the pros and cons of increased investment in infrastructure would be that there is an increase in economic growth and an increase in supply. They go hand in hand because of the availability of roads and tunnels. Goods can be transported more effectively and more efficiently, while It can also increase employment as people need to be employed in order to create these roads and dams. Cons, it can cause inflation, it can cause crowding out because of increased spending. And there are opportunity costs. For example, investing in education might be the better option in the long run. So conclusion, interest rates versus infrastructure, what would be the best option? I think in the long run, infrastructure, as Bhutan is a very mountainous country and roads, tunnels, bridges need to be built in order to grow the country. Interest rates are also good in the long run. However, infrastructure, I believe, is the better option. Thank you very much for watching.